My husband laughed about my mother's death. Until his boss spoke. "Welcome, this is Voice of Deborah and I tell true life stories." I heard my husband's laughter echo through the kitchen, and my blood turned to ice. Not because laughter is wrong, but because he was on the phone, and I'd just told him 20 minutes earlier that my mother had died. "Yeah man, it's actually perfect timing," Derek said into his cell, his back to me as he stood by the window. "The funeral's next week, so we'll have the house to ourselves for at least 3 days." I stood frozen in the doorway, the death certificate still clutched in my trembling hands. My mother had passed away that morning after a long battle with cancer, and I'd barely had time to process it before Derek came home from work. But what he said next made me question everything I thought I knew about my marriage. "Nah, she won't suspect anything. Emma's too busy playing the grieving daughter." He laughed again, that cold, unfamiliar sound. "Trust me, by this time next month, everything will be in motion." The death certificate slipped from my fingers and fluttered to the floor. Derek spun around, his face draining of color when he saw me standing there. "Emma, he started, shoving his phone into his pocket. "Who were you talking to?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Just Jake from work." "You misheard me, babe." He crossed the kitchen toward me, reaching for my shoulders, but I stepped back. "I know you're emotional right now. Your mom just died. You're not thinking clearly." That's what he did. That's what Derek had always done. Whenever I questioned something that didn't sit right, he'd twist it back on me, make me doubt my own ears, my own instincts. But this time I'd heard him perfectly. "I need to be alone," I said, turning toward the stairs. "Emma, come on. Don't be dramatic." I didn't respond. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom and locked the door behind me, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs might crack. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mother's death suddenly feeling like the second worst thing that had happened to me that day. The funeral was scheduled for the following Tuesday. My mother had been the only family I had left after my father passed away 10 years ago. She'd worked as a school librarian her whole life, saving every penny she could. When she got sick 2 years ago, I'd moved back home to take care of her, commuting 2 hours each way to my job as a paralegal in the city. That's where I'd met Derek. He was a financial consultant for a firm 3 floors above my law office. Charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted after years of failed relationships. But something had changed after we got married 8 months ago. The week leading up to the funeral was a blur of arrangements and paperwork. Derek was suddenly attentive again, bringing me tea, rubbing my shoulders, telling me how sorry he was for my loss. He even took time off work to help me sort through my mother's things. "Your mom's house is worth quite a bit," he mentioned casually one evening as we sat in her living room, surrounded by boxes. "Real estate in this area has really gone up." "I'm not selling it," I said immediately. "This is where I grew up. All my memories are here." Something flickered across his face. Annoyance. Anger. It was gone before I could be sure. "Of course not. I'm just saying, for insurance purposes. We should get it appraised." I nodded absently, too exhausted to argue. The day of the funeral arrived gray and cold. The service was small, just a handful of my mother's friends from the library and the church she'd attended. Derek stood beside me at the graveside, his hand on the small of my back, playing the role of supportive husband perfectly. But I couldn't stop thinking about that phone call. After the burial, we held a small reception at my mother's house. I was in the kitchen preparing coffee when I overheard Derek talking to someone in the hallway. "Tuesday night," he said, his voice low. "She'll be exhausted. It's the perfect time." My hands shook as I poured water into the coffee maker. Tuesday night. That was tonight. I walked into the hallway, and Derek was alone, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Again. "Who was that?" he asked. "Just work. They're asking when I'll be back." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Why don't you go rest? I'll finish up here." But I didn't rest. Instead, I went upstairs to my old bedroom and started going through my mother's papers more carefully. She'd been meticulous about her records, keeping everything organized in labeled folders. That's when I found it. A folder marked Emma, important, hidden in the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside was a copy of her will, and my hands started shaking as I read it. My mother had left everything to me. The house, her life insurance policy worth $500,000, her retirement accounts, everything. The total estate was worth nearly $1.2 million. But there was something else in the folder. A letter, dated 3 weeks ago, in my mother's handwriting. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I need you to know something that I discovered, and I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was trying to find the right time, but the cancer moved faster than I expected. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator. I know you'll think I was being paranoid, but a mother's instincts are rarely wrong. I never trusted Derek, sweetheart. There was something about the way he looked at you, the way he asked questions about my health, my finances. The investigator found out that Derek has done this before. My vision blurred as tears filled my eyes. He married a woman in Oregon 5 years ago. She inherited money from her grandmother 6 months into their marriage. Within a year, she was dead. An accidental fall down the stairs, the police report said. Derek inherited everything as her husband. The investigator is named Richard Cowell. His number is at the bottom of this letter. I've already paid him to continue investigating if anything happens to me. There's also a safe deposit box at First National Bank. Box 337. The key is taped under the bottom drawer of this desk. I love you more than life itself. Please be careful. Trust your instincts like I taught you. The letter slipped from my hands. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. Derek had killed before. And now, with my mother dead and me as the sole inheritor of a substantial estate, I was next. Tuesday night. Tonight. It's the perfect time, he'd said. I heard footsteps on the stairs and panic seized me. I shoved the letter back into the folder and kicked the drawer shut just as Derek appeared in the doorway. There you are. The last guests just left. He stepped into the room and suddenly it felt smaller, the walls closing in. You must be exhausted. I am, I managed to say, standing up too quickly. The room tilted. Derek's hand shot out to steady me. His grip tight on my arm. Too tight. Why don't we head home, he suggested. You can come back and deal with all this stuff later. You need to rest. Every instinct in my body screamed danger. But I nodded, playing along. Okay. Let me just use the bathroom first. In the bathroom, I locked the door and pulled out my phone with shaking hands. I found the private investigator's number in my recent photos. I'd taken a picture of the letter and called. Richard Cowell, a gruff voice answered. My name is Emma Walsh. My mother was Charlotte Bennett. She hired you. I know who you are, he interrupted. I'm so sorry about your mother. She was a remarkable woman. She left me a letter. About Derek. About what he did in Oregon. There was a pause. Where are you right now? At my mother's house. With him. Listen to me very carefully. Do not let him take you home. Do not get in a car with him alone. Do you understand? He said tonight is the perfect time for something. I heard him on the phone. I've been gathering evidence for the past 3 months. Your mother suspected he might try something after she passed. We have enough to take to the police, but we need you safe first. His voice was steady, calm. Is there somewhere public you can go? Someone you can call? My mind raced. My boss, Stephen Chin. He lives 20 minutes from here. Call him. Tell him you need help. Make up an excuse to Derek, anything, but do not leave with him. I'm on my way to you now. I'm 40 minutes out. Emma. Derek's voice came through the door, making me jump. You okay in there? Fine. Called out, my voice cracking. Just a minute. I texted Stephen. Emergency. Need help. Please call me in 2 minutes and say you need me at the office urgently. To my relief, my phone rang almost immediately. Stephen had always been protective of his staff, and he didn't ask questions. I answered, making my voice shaky. Hello. Oh, Stephen. No. But yes, I understand. It's that important. I'll be there as soon as I can. I opened the bathroom door to find Derek standing right outside. His expression unreadable. That was my boss. There's an emergency with the Hoffman case. Files are missing, and I'm the only one who knows where they are. The lie came easily, fueled by fear. I have to go to the office. Derek's jaw tightened. Tonight. Emma, your mother's funeral was this morning. I know, but this case is worth millions to the firm. If I don't go, I could lose my job. I pushed past him, heading downstairs. You don't have to come. You must be tired. Of course I'm coming, he said, following too closely. You're in no state to drive. My heart hammered against my ribs. Getting in a car with him alone was exactly what Richard had warned against. Actually, I said, thinking fast as I grabbed my purse. Stephen said he's sending a car service for me. You know how he is about billable hours. He wants me there ASAP, and he knows I'm upset. I saw the calculation in Derek's eyes, weighing his options. I'll wait with you until it arrives, he finally said. The next 15 minutes were the longest of my life. Derek and I stood in my mother's driveway, the evening air growing cold around us. He kept trying to touch me, to put his arm around me, and I kept finding reasons to move away. When headlights finally appeared at the end of the street, relief flooded through me. But it wasn't a car service. It was Richard Cowell, and he wasn't alone. 2 police cars pulled up behind his sedan. Derek's face went white. Emma, what did you do? What I should have done the moment I heard you laughing about my mother's death, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. You said it was perfect timing. That we'd have the house to ourselves. That everything would be in motion by next month. You're crazy. I never said that. I heard you. And so will the police when they hear the recording. His face went from white to red. What recording? I pulled out my phone, opening the voice memo app. I'd been recording every conversation we'd had since that day in the kitchen. Hours of footage showing his true nature. His cold calculations. His irritation when I said I wouldn't sell my mother's house. Richard Cowell approached us, showing his badge. Mr. Walsh, I'm a private investigator hired by Charlotte Bennett. These officers would like to ask you some questions about the death of Jennifer Sutton in Portland, Oregon 5 years ago. I don't know who that is, Derek said, but his voice wavered. Your first wife, one of the officers said. The one who died 6 months after inheriting $200,000. The one whose death was ruled accidental until new evidence surfaced last month. Derek looked at me, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Emma, please. You don't understand. I love you. No, I said quietly. You loved my mother's money. You loved the idea of what you could take from me. But you never loved me. But what happened next no one expected. Derek lunged toward me, his hand diving into his jacket pocket. If I can't have it, neither can you. Richard moved fast, tackling Derek to the ground before he could pull out whatever he was reaching for. The officers rushed in, pinning Derek's arms behind his back. From his pocket, they pulled out a small bottle. Sleeping pills, one officer said, holding up the prescription bottle. Heavy dosage. Enough to make someone stop breathing if mixed with alcohol, Richard finished, looking at me. Your mother suspected he'd try to stage it as an accident. A grieving widow, drinking to cope with loss, taking too many pills. My legs gave out and I sat down hard on the driveway. He'd been planning to kill me tonight. After the funeral, when I was exhausted and emotional, he would have offered me wine, something to help me sleep. And I would have trusted him because he was my husband. Derek was screaming now as they handcuffed him, shouting that I was crazy, that this was all a misunderstanding, that I'd regret this. But his words sounded distant, like they were coming from underwater. Richard crouched down beside me. Your mother saved your life, Emma. She knew something was wrong, and she trusted her instincts. Over the next few weeks, the full scope of Derek's plan unraveled. He'd been deep in debt from gambling, over $400,000 in the hole to some dangerous people. He'd married me specifically because he'd researched my mother's assets. He'd been waiting for her to die so he could inherit everything through me, and then stage my accident before anyone could question the timing. The investigation revealed he'd done this twice before, not just once. 2 women, both dead within a year of marriage, both having recently inherited money. He was smart, patient, and calculating. But he wasn't smart enough to suspect that a dying librarian would hire a private investigator. The safe deposit box my mother mentioned contained all of Richard's investigation files, copies of everything. She'd been building a case against Derek for months, trying to gather enough evidence to prove what he was before it was too late. But she ran out of time. The trial was months later. I testified about the phone call I'd overheard, the recordings I'd made, the letter my mother had left me. Derek's defense tried to paint me as a paranoid, grieving daughter who'd misunderstood innocent conversations. But the jury heard from Jennifer Sutton's family in Oregon. They heard from another woman Derek had courted but who'd broken things off when she realized he was too interested in her finances. They heard from experts who explained the pattern of his behavior. He was convicted on 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The sentence was life without parole. I sold my mother's house eventually. Not because Derek had wanted me to, but because I couldn't live there anymore knowing what had almost happened. I used some of the money to create a foundation in my mother's name, offering free private investigation services to people who suspect they might be in danger from someone they trust. Because that's the thing about people like Derek. They're charming. They're patient. They know exactly what to say and when to say it. They make you doubt yourself, question your instincts, feel crazy for suspecting them. But instincts exist for a reason. That feeling in your gut that something isn't right. That voice in your head that says this person is too good to be true. Listen to it. My mother did. And because she trusted her instincts even when she was dying, even when it would have been easier to just hope for the best, she saved my life. I visit her grave every week. I tell her about the foundation, about the people we've helped, about the lives we've potentially saved. I tell her thank you over and over for being paranoid, for being suspicious, for loving me enough to spend her final months making sure I'd be safe after she was gone. 3 weeks after Derek's conviction, I received a package at my new apartment. Inside was a letter from Stephen Chen, my former boss at the law firm. Emma, I need to tell you something I probably should have mentioned months ago. Derek came to see me last January. He asked detailed questions about your salary, your position, whether you were in line for any promotions or bonuses. At the time, I thought he was just an interested spouse. But after everything that happened, I went back through our security footage. He'd been in the building 6 times before you ever met. He'd been watching you, researching you, planning. I'm so sorry I didn't see it then. But there's something else. Derek had a partner. My blood ran cold as I continued reading. During the investigation, they found communications on his phone with someone using a blocked number. They discussed your mother's death, the timeline, the plan. The police haven't been able to trace the number, but the last message, sent the night of the funeral, said, "If this one fails, I have another target lined up. Same profile. Better outcome. Emma, whoever Derek was working with is still out there. They're still hunting. I wanted you to know so you could be careful. I forwarded all of this information to Detective Morrison on your case. Please watch your back." I sat in my living room, reading and rereading Stephen's letter until the words blurred together. Derek hadn't been working alone. Someone out there was continuing the pattern, finding vulnerable people who'd recently inherited money, setting them up for murder. The next morning I called Detective Morrison and Richard Cowell. We had work to do. But that's a story for another time. What I want you to take away from this is simple. Trust yourself. If someone's behavior doesn't add up, if things feel off, if your gut is screaming that something is wrong, don't ignore it. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being dramatic or paranoid or emotional. My mother taught me that. And it saved my life. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever doubted your own instincts or stayed in a situation that felt wrong, I hope you'll share this. Someone out there might need to hear it. Someone might be in danger right now, telling themselves they're just being paranoid. They're not. And neither was I. Trust your instincts. They exist for a reason. Stay safe out there and remember, the most dangerous people are often the ones who seem the safest. The ones who know exactly what you want to hear. The ones who are patient enough to wait for the perfect moment. My mother saw through Derek's mask. She trusted herself enough to act on her suspicions even as cancer ravaged her body. She gave me the greatest gift anyone could give. The truth and the evidence to prove it. I only wish she'd lived long enough to see Derek in handcuffs, to know for certain that I was safe. But maybe somehow she does know. I like to think so. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Please hit that subscribe button. I'll be sharing more about the Foundation, about the warning signs we've identified, about how to protect yourself and the people you love from predators who hide behind charm and patience. Because knowledge is power. And awareness is survival. Take care of yourselves. And take care of each other.